Hello and welcome back. I'm Dracoya, and today we're doing another YouTube tutorial on iridescent non-metallic metal using the amazing Kimera Velvets, now found on Dracoya.com. And before I jump into it, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate your support, and it allows us to continue putting out all of these amazing tutorials just for you. So here in front of me, I have this new practice piece, and I've already zenithal primed it. So you can see I actually tried to zenithal prime it from an angle because I wanted the light to have something a little bit of a challenge for us today. So when I'm doing non-metallic metal, the first and most important step I have found is to sketch out where I want my highlights to be. So to sketch out right now, I'm not using the Kimera White Velvet, which you absolutely could. I was just lazy and didn't want to get up. This is going to be the regular Kimera the White, and I'm just going to start sketching everything in. Now some of you are going to say, but Dracoya, I don't know where to put my highlights. Well, that's okay. Let me help you. Now, this is from our amazing friend and artist, Francesco Farabi. We're going to be working with a large cylinder shape today, which I've gone ahead and circled in the picture seen here. So this cylinder shape, you'll see there is a long highlight all the way from top to bottom. That is the same shape that we are going to want to keep in mind when we are painting the highlights on his torso, because his torso is going to be used as kind of a cylindrical-like shape. When you think about it, his torso looks barrel-chested, it's very round. So all non-metallic metal can be broken up into these shapes. It doesn't matter what you paint, it all can be broken up into these shapes. So if you saw my previous video where I did the shoulder pad with the giant lion's head right there, you would say, oh gosh, there's no way that we paint that as in a circle highlight the way I had in that diagram. Well, you're incorrect. That's exactly what we're gonna do. It all comes down to your understanding of shapes. That's one of the key elements of a great non-metallic metal. Of course, really good zenithal priming is incredibly helpful when you're trying to figure out where your highlights are going to be placed. There's all these little micro highlighting areas, like this particular example. You have another lovely highlighted area at the bottom of his armor. So I broke up the two highlights, that one right there, and then the other one is going to be right on the right side beneath that like sigil on his chest. And the reason is that sigil on his chest actually blocked a lot of that light right there, which is also fantastic because I want to create this iridescent contrast. Now, I have never done this before. I've never painted iridescent colors. You can look all over my Instagram. This is the first time that I'll be doing this. But on this channel, we're all about painting around and finding out. So let's figure it out together. You'll see here that I pulled a couple of stock photos from the internet. I did a quick Google search that just said iridescent colors or iridescent fabric. And these are some of the pictures that I pulled up. So I know I'm gonna need some kind of green. Both of those greens I actually pulled from the gold leaf set, but everything else is gonna be from our purple dusk set. If you haven't picked this up, by the way, you have got to give it a try. Again, they're found on Dracoya.com for all the USA. I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but if you look at the reference photos, you know that we're gonna need to start with a dark color. So I had this really pretty indigo blue in the purple dusk set, and I figured, well, that will be my deepest shadow. So using my zenithal priming as a guide, everywhere I saw where the zenithal priming was mostly shadow and not light, that's where I wanted to make sure I put that indigo blue. You'll notice that I'm not going to paint this indigo blue over any of the white places that I have, because to make a true iridescent non-metallic look, you really want that very quick, very stark contrast from one color to the next. The first few colors I put on here are really just going to be about color blocking. For those of you that don't know, color blocking is the art of just taking your mid-tone colors and just figuring out where you want your general shapes to be. It doesn't need to be perfect or beautiful, but that's what we're doing. So now I know I need a purple of some kind, but I wasn't really taken with the purple that I had here. It was one of the darker purples. Violet, actually. So then I decided, well, heck, let me go ahead and pull out the regular dark purple from the Purple Dusk set, now found on Dracoya.com. See, I can already tell that's just a little bit lighter and more in line with what I needed. So we are painting this over black. So I already knew it was going to read as very dark, which is what you want for your first steps of creating this iridescent non-metallic metal. But I knew that this next step with the purple couldn't be as dark as the indigo blue, which is why we decided to go with the purple instead of choosing the violet. So now I'm going to take this purple and I'm going to blend it with the indigo blue into all of my shadow placements. And then I thought, well, heck, why not? Let's just throw all of the Purple Dusk colors on my palette because we're here to have fun, right? We're still experimenting and figuring it out. So let's just throw all the colors on there and see where inspiration can take us. Now that I see them on my palette, I'm going to go ahead and use the wine color from the Purple Dusk set as the brightest point of my shadows. So if you look at iridescent fabric, you'll notice that even when it's dark, it has kind of a shimmer to it. And in order to create that shimmer, we need to jump from one color to the next in a very stark manner. So we're taking the wine color and we're going to add it not to everything, but just to the highest highlight of the shadow. We haven't even touched most of everything on the right hand side. This is going to just be the highest point of my shadows. And that's what we're going to see here. There was too much wine color on this section. We really need to tone that down. So I'm going to take my purple and start adding back some of those shadows in this section. If you look at most non-metallic metal, at least unless it's gold, it's going to have some level of blue. Be it silver or steel, it's going to have some level of blue. So I'm going to take my indigo and I'm going to add a little bit of the green. And let's see if we can't jump up and start making something for our highlight, shall we? So we added a little bit of the forest green. Now we're going to add a little bit of the white. See, that's nice, but I think we need it to be a little bit different of a jump. Adding in a little bit more green to make it almost like an aqua color. By the way, this is half of the process. Just take a bunch of paint and mix it around. Finger paint a little bit. Figure out what you can make. You would be surprised at the beautiful colors in store for you when you are using single pigment paints. Now that I found a blue color that I kind of like, that blue-green, I'm going to start adding this into the areas for our highlight. This is going to look a lot worse before it gets better, so be patient and just remember it's all a part of the process. Also, just a gentle reminder, all of the paints that I'm using today are pure velvets. I did not mix them with any colors or any other paints. These are pure velvets, and I'm able to paint with them as a regular paint. They work kind of like a contrast, but they blend so nicely. And at this point, I'm kind of feeling like I'm cheating. I mean, you saw it. I only added one single layer of blue to the highlight section, and I barely pushed down that violet, and yet they are already blending so beautifully. I feel like I'm cheating. The color sequence between that indigo blue with white all the way to the purple and the wine color looks so gorgeous. I'm glad I tested that out on a smaller portion of the model, because now I'm definitely going to just run with it. Going back to still add indigo to the deepest part of the shadows. I want to make sure I have stark transitions between one section and the next, because that's what's going to give us that real iridescent color. I barely feel like I have to try hard when it comes to blending the velvets together. I love how easy and fluid they feel on the model and with the brush. It makes wet blending probably the easiest thing I've ever done. I think from now on, this might be my go-to range whenever I'm doing non-metallic metal. And now you guys can see what it looks like a little bit close up. I think it's very important that everyone sees my palette when I start working on things, but as we get a little bit more into it, it's equally as important that you see my technique and the details on whatever the model is that I'm painting. So I'm adding a little bit more white here because I didn't want it to look like stripes. We don't want that effect, but we do want the highlights to shine through. Painting, what I have noticed is painting over black with the velvets does give it a little bit more of a satiny effect. And so I wanted to make sure that the highest highlights had that white background to lessen it. I added a little bit more white into the light mixture that I had because we just want to brighten a smaller section of it up, not the entire blue section on the bottom. Just enough to make it look like there is something different, to make it look like there's a little bit of a shine. Now that I have messed around, found the colors that I want, this is the part where now you just have to work on blending them together to have the areas that you want. So smooth out some of those transitions. You can see a little bit more of the wet blending on that wet blending tutorial that I had. That's the foundation for how I personally love to do non-metallic metal. I know Llama, he really likes to do a scratch technique. If you guys are interested in that, comment down below and we will be happy to make you another tutorial for that. But at this point, it's just about taking the exact colors that we've already talked about and going back and forth. Now this section right here on his chest, as I said before, we want to have that very quick cut, that quick contrast between light and dark. And what's going to give it an iridescent look are the jumps between the two. If I was just painting something else, I wouldn't want to have as much of a jump between a very vibrant light color and a deep, rich, dark color. But because we're trying to go for an iridescent effect, this is how we are planning on doing that, with that quick, stark contrast, back and forth. The other thing that I'm wanting to do is using my brush, I'm trying to keep my brush strokes all going the same direction. So if I have it going the same direction, it's going to create a kind of a scratch-like effect, but not as rough and rugged as, you know, worn steel or worn armor. I just like it when it's a bit smoother myself. But we still want our brush strokes to all go in the same direction. So you see, I'm not moving my brush horizontally, diagonally all over the place. I'm really keeping it to an up-down stroke. And a lot of the times I'm actually picking my brush up in between each stroke. So I'm only going down or I'm only going up, depending on which region I'm painting. What do you guys think? Is it starting to look a little iridescent? Well, at this point in the stage, I really like the way it looks. I love the blue and the purples. The purple dusk set is my favorite so far, but I'm not 100% sold that it looks iridescent. So that's when I started thinking, okay, well, let's take a look at our inspirations and see what color we need to adjust to. Okay, so when we look at the photos for reference on the left, we see that there are some pinks, lots of blue, lots of deep, rich purple, and quite a bit of green. So I think that would be the next step. Now that we have started to see where we want our blues to go, I'm going to continue to refine the blue and the transition between the blue and the purple, just to make sure I get the specific values that I want to see. And then we're going to move on to green. The thing about non-metallic metal is that it doesn't usually look metallic, and it continues to not do so until one point you add one little color, you add one little layer, and then suddenly it looks metallic. That's kind of how non-metallic tends to work, and that's why it can also be so tricky, especially if you're new to painting. Blending and having good paints and good brushes is really key. And I can't wait until I can tell you guys that these brushes are gonna be on Dracoya.com later this month. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and also subscribe to our email list for 10% off your first order. Okay, moment of truth. Just a little bit of green. We don't want to do too much. We just want it to hint. Yep, I think that's exactly what it needed. To me now it really looks more iridescent. It makes all of the other colors pop. We barely want to use any green. If we use too much, then it's going to just lean a little bit too green, and that's not what we want. We want it to give this mirage of color shifting in the armor itself. The satin finish of the velvets make that easy. The blending and how easy the velvets are to blend make this amazing. But adding just a tint of green to your highest highlight. That is one thing that a lot of non-metallic people forget, is you have to have just this ever so slightly drop of your highest highlight when you're finishing up a piece. I can continue to do some refinement, but I am so happy with how this has turned out. It is a technique I've always wanted to try, and these velvets make it irresistibly easy. Thank you again to Kimera for letting me be the new US distributor for all of their paints. Go to Dracoya.com. As always, guys, I'm Dracoya. Like, comment, subscribe, and remember, painting is all about just paint around and find out.